Cindy Kaza.
How's it going?
Going really well. It's going better now. That is an amazing photo that you just had on your Zoom. Where in the world is that?
That was in a national park in Arizona. Which one was it? I can't remember. Zion, maybe? Is Zion Arizona?
Zion's in Utah, but it's not far from Arizona.
It was at one of the national parks. Yeah, it was during COVID. So I went to a bunch of national parks. It was really fun.
That's amazing. My wife
Yeah.
and I got married out in Sedona last year. Have you ever been to Sedona?
Oh, nice. Yeah, I've been to Sedona once, but it was like probably 15 years ago. So it's been a
Okay.
while. Yeah.
Okay. Is it true? Did you get any feelings or senses, some vortexes, all that kind of stuff?
I think it's real. I mean, I think there's definitely a vibe there, and there are a few of my friends swear by it. Like they've had huge experiences there, so I think there's something happening there for sure.
Yeah, you're the right person to ask. I had no idea I was going to
Yeah,
ask you that, but yeah.
yeah.
So
Congratulations on your wedding.
thank you. I appreciate that. Um, I just want to thank you so much for joining me, spending your time with me. I am beyond excited to have you. There's like a million different questions and different avenues I want to go with this, but I want to say thank you. Um, do you introduce yourself? I know you get this all the time. Psychic medium. What in the world? And what is the difference? Can you explain to people?
Yeah. So, I mean, the difference between psychic and medium is this: psychics pick up on past, present, and future. Mediums communicate with spirits. So it's kind of redundant because all mediums are psychic, right? But the reason that I say psychic medium is so people understand that I do work in both spaces. So some people will say I'm a medium. They prefer to stay communicating with spirits and not dabble so much in past, present, and future and stuff like that. And some people are just more psychic. So they do things like psychic investigations, they do remote viewing. I mean, it's all under the same umbrella. And honestly, I believe that everybody is psychic and everybody has mediumistic ability. It's just some people are stronger in one area, that over the other. So yeah.
Yeah, we're going to get into that momentarily. I was thinking, getting ready for this podcast over the last few days, I was like, what's the first time I was introduced to Cindy? I feel like I know you because I've listened to podcasts, I've watched you on TV for years now. I want to say the first time I was introduced to you was when you were, I think it was Portals to Hell when you went to Bobby Mackey's.
Oh my gosh,
And
that feels like forever ago. That
when
was
was
like,
that?
man, I think that was like let's see, 2018. That feels right. 2018, maybe.
Everything's like BC or AC now, right? Before COVID or after
It was it was
COVID?
BC. It was BC.
It was
Yeah,
BC.
it was either late 2018 or early 2019, I think. Yeah, because it was before COVID. Yeah.
That was the first. So I've watched these paranormal shows for a long time. I've had Katrina on here, Michelle Bellinger, if you know who she is. I've
Yeah,
had
I
her on
love both
here.
of them. Yeah, I love both of
Awesome
them. They're
people.
amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. The most fascinating conversation. So I knew I had to get
Hmm.
you on here. And yeah, I was gonna watch the show anyways, but I saw I was in Bobby Mackey's. Like that place is pretty notorious for being some pretty haunted. And I saw you walking through, fascinated, and then you started to do this automatic
Automatic
writing
writing.
thing. And I was like, what the hell? What is this? And so, hey, let's get right into it. What in the world? How does your, we'll say, gift work? And what is automatic writing? What's that?
Yeah, so automatic writing it's channeled writing. So it's a little bit different than I think I mean it's very different than how I normally work where I'm going walking through a room and I'm seeing imagery and saying I see this, I feel this, I hear this, right? So when I'm doing that, I'm using the clairs. So we have clairvoyance, which is the seeing. So when people say I'm going to the clairvoyant, they're often misunderstanding what they're saying. Clairvoyance is clear seeing. So people that have visions, people that have visitation dreams, people that actually see apparitions or have things in their minds that come in the form of picture, that's clairvoyance. Clairaudience is when people can hear. Generally, it isn't external auditory as you're hearing me speak to you now. It's like if you were to sing the words to your favorite song in your head. So a medium can say, I'm hearing the spirit saying this, but it doesn't mean that I'm hearing a spirit talking to me like I'm hearing you speak to me, right? It's in the
Mm-hmm.
mind.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it can be, but it's generally for me, it's not that way. And then, all people that are very empathic. They feel, that's called clairsentience. So spirits communicate in a number of ways, right? So like you can have one spirit that will give you five pieces of information using like different clairs. I might see a spirit, hear the name John, feel that he died of a heart attack, and so on and so forth. So if you don't understand the mechanics of mediumship, everything feels a little bit like Pictionary, charades, and telephone. It's like hard to make sense of it sometimes. So,
Right.
I talk a lot about how I've studied mediumship, and when I say I've studied mediumship, I've learned to understand how mediumship works for me and how the information comes in. So, automatic writing, it's a little bit. I think I'd say it's like a more clear channel for me because I'm not having to interpret the information. So, for example, if a spirit is giving me something like a picture in my mind, I have to sit there and say, is this literal? Is it metaphorical? What are they showing me? Like an apple could mean somebody owned an apple farm. It could mean somebody liked apples. It could, right? So you have to figure out what is it show, what is that picture showing me? Automatic writing, it's just coming out. And I'm not hearing the words and writing them down. It's just coming out in real time. So it's kind of vulnerable because I don't know what's going to come out. It's not filtered, if that makes sense.
Wow.
The
So
other information can be filtered.
as you write, are you knowing what you write, or do you have to go back and kind of read what you wrote down?
Yeah. So, I mean, as it's coming out, I know I can, I'm seeing it coming out. I can hear it coming out. I can see it coming out of the paper. I can relay it to the person that I'm sitting with, but it comes out so quickly that oftentimes when I go back to read it, I can't read my own handwriting. So I've had to like slow myself down a bit but it's a different way to work for me. But I will say this, like I think I just said, for me it's a little bit more vulnerable because I don't have the same filter with automatic writing. So I'm just kind
Mm.
of open. So what you saw in Bobby Mackey's, that was a scary episode, right?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. So was it really a scary place?
Totally. I
Yeah.
thought it was very scary. Yeah, I mean, not my favorite place, but that was
Do
my
you,
experience. Yeah.
do you ever walk into these places? You're like, I don't want to be here anymore. This is crazy.
Yeah. I mean, that's happened. I mean, especially, there were some episodes of Holzer Files, and even I was on a show called Ghost of Devil's Perch. There were some moments where I was like, what are we doing here? Like, why am I even in this place? Because it's, as a medium, I have to finish the job. I'm there for a
Right.
reason. But there's also, there are moments where I'm like, I don't have to stay here. What are we doing here? Let's get out of here. It's like,
I love that we're starting off with a bang. This is awesome.
yeah,
My wife and I watched the Ghost of Devils. We watched the whole series, and we are just like, we were attached. And I've been to Montana numerous times. Not, I don't think in the areas that you were at. Just absolutely fascinating. So we make sure to DVR. We never missed it when it came out. We watched it every time. I want to go back real quick when you were saying sensory. When you hear voices, do you hear it in their voice, or is it just like a generic voice?
it sounds like I'm singing the words to my favorite song in my head, right? So
Okay.
it's in my voice. Sometimes it's kind of hard to explain. It's like if you can imagine singing the words to your favorite song in your head, and then maybe adding a British accent sometimes, like because you might hear the accent, but you're not hearing it like you're hearing me. You see what I mean? It's in the
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah.
So people will have these experiences a lot and they think that they're just talking to themselves when actually they're receiving information from the spirit. So until you know the subtleties of spirit
No
communication, you're gonna
kidding.
miss it. You're gonna miss it. Yeah.
Yeah, I know you like to teach. There's so many avenues I want to go, but first I want to introduce the audience more to you and what we'll say what your gift is and your story of how you kind of knew you had this gift, if you will. I know it was when you were about 10 years old, right? A little girl passed away and you kind of woke up
Mhm.
and she was in your bedroom. If you can explain that.
Yeah, so that's the first experience I can remember having. And yeah, so there's a girl who died, and she was from my elementary school. I knew her. She died. I woke up in the middle of the night after she died, and she was standing next to my bed, full body apparition. And it was really scary. And I put the covers over my head. I pulled them back down, and she was still standing there. So that's
Ooh,
like my first memorable experience. But having said that, right, like at the time, I didn't know what mediumship was. I didn't have a reference to what a ghost was. I knew that I had seen her, but I didn't understand what was happening. So it wasn't something that I like talked about. I also grew up in a, pretty religious family. We didn't talk about those sorts of things. And then, but as a kid, and obviously still to this day, I was very sensitive, and I knew when things were going to happen before they did. I could read people very well. I could feel energies around me, and it was really confusing. So, it wasn't until when I was 19 that I met my first mentor, although it wasn't until my 20s that I really understood what was going on with me. But I met this woman when I was 19. Her name was Bonnie, and she was a witch. She was Wiccan, and she dressed the part. And I was, who is this crazy lady, right? And we became really good friends. And um, she looked at me and she said, "You're a psychic medium." And I was like, "What are you talking about, lady? Like, what do you mean I'm a psychic medium?" She said, "Cindy, you're a psychic medium." And she's the first person who ever said that to me. And after that, I spent a lot of time with her, and she taught me things about metaphysics, about the tarot. Um, and then eventually it just it all started making sense. And then I looked back and said, "Oh my gosh, that experience when I was 10, that was real. That really happened. I saw her. I saw Amber."
Wow.
So it took me years to put all the pieces together, and it was very difficult because when people are sensitive and really open, it's very confusing if you don't have anybody to talk to about it, because what happens is you're feeling everybody else's emotions, including your own, including the spirit world, including psychic imprinting, and then you're trying to navigate life, and it's very much feels like a roller coaster. So it's really difficult, and you'll when you talk to children who are psychic and open, they'll tell you that, right? Like, it's confusing. So if anybody has a psychic kid, talk to your kid about it. Like,
Yeah.
give them a space to communicate what they're experiencing, because it'll be really helpful to them going forward.
So I've heard this story, and a question I wanted to ask you is, do you feel like you were chosen? I know you said we all kind of have this ability, but why did she show up in your room? Why did you see her? Do you have an idea?
I don't know, I don't like saying I was chosen. Like, I just can't bring myself to say that ever about
She
anything,
chose
I
you.
well, I mean, look, it's like I honestly don't know. I also look, I also live my life this way. I believe that everything happens like just as it's supposed to. Like I just I don't believe in coincidences, to be honest with you, right? So it's like maybe that experience had to happen to me. So when I met my first mentor at 19, and when I got into my 20s and looked back, I could understand what had been happening to me my entire life.
Hmm. Is
To put the pieces together, to make sense of all of the emotions and the energies and the experiences, because that was very therapeutic to understand, to finally understand, what had been happening for all of those years.
is there another example that comes to mind, like in your teen years or something, that you're like, ah, yep, that's what that was too? Is there other instances that you can draw back to?
Yeah, so let's see. This one's actually kind of scary. So there was this weekend. I was a teenager. It's like, I think I was like 17, and yeah, we were like partying at this barn, this old barn. My friends, everybody was sleeping there, and I woke up and we slept there. It was like a Friday and a Saturday night, right? So I was sleeping on the couch both nights, and I woke up, and this happened 2 nights in a row. I woke up in the middle of the night, and I felt like something was on top of me trying to suck the air out of my lungs. So people will talk about this and say, "Oh, it's like a succubus or some
Mm.
sort of entity," right? But I was like paralyzed. I couldn't move. Like, it was terrifying, and it happened 2 nights in a row. I left, never happened again, and I didn't know what was happening to me, right? And now looking back, I'm like, I think I was probably in a house that probably had some really like dark energy, and had that experience. And that was really memorable. So to be
Yeah.
able to kind of go back and sit with that, and to be honest with you, it's like sometimes when people talk, I hear experiences that people have had, like that experience. I will ask them, maybe it's sleep paralysis. Do you have a sleep disorder? Could it have been something else? Right. But it has never happened to me again. It was the only time when I was in that one location, and it's never happened again. So there's no sleep disorder.
Mm.
Uh, yeah. So that was pretty scary.
Yeah, that sounds it. I'm thinking as you tell these stories, like there's a part of me that wants to experience something just to know that it's real, but then it's like, do I really want to do that? I'm a big traveler like you are. And recently, a couple years ago, I took my wife, dragged my wife to the Washoe Club in Virginia City, if you're familiar with that. I've been to penitentiaries. I went to the Winchester Mystery. I've been to these
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
places, and it's like I want to know if it's real, but do I really want to know if it's real? It's a fear because, like you just said, that probably scared the shit out of you, right? And I don't know if I really want that to happen to me, and
Well, you
I'm not
don't have to call
equipped.
that in. It doesn't have to be that, you know? I mean, why don't you just ask for something more gentle?
How do I ask? I don't know how to ask. How do you?
So that's the thing. That's the thing, right? It's like, um, my belief is this, the energy, the spirit world is all around us. The
Mm-hmm.
energies are all around us. Everybody has access to these energies, and everybody has the ability to have these experiences. I always say everyone can play the piano. Not everybody is going to be a concert pianist, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
my truth is that most people have had experiences that they can't quite explain, or that they don't realize. Well, they don't realize that the experiences are metaphysical, right? So, like, a lot of people have visitation dreams of their loved ones after they die. And a visitation dream is a really unique type of dream because it's very, very clear. You'll always remember what your loved one looked like, how you felt. It
Mm-hmm.
People wake up from these dreams and they know it was a different kind of a dream,
Or they're
right?
crying or something, right?
Right. And it's not like it's just different. And when I do a lot of live events, and when I ask my audience, how many of you have had visitation dreams, it is at least, I'd say, 75 to 80% of the audience at every show that I do. It's a huge amount of people, right?
Wow.
And so those are real experiences. That's a visitation from the spirit world. And I believe that it's easier for our loved ones to communicate with us in dreams because we're not trying to talk ourselves out of the experience. We're not distracted. We're sleeping, and we have this profound experience, and we wake up and we can say to ourselves, "Oh man, well maybe it was, I'm imagining it," but there's I guess an embodiment to the experience, if that makes sense. Like, you feel it also. And so it's really hard to talk yourself out of that experience, and it will stick with you for the rest of your life, right? um Another thing, smelling cigarette smoke or perfume or something in a room when there's nobody around, right? And the other thing, and I've been saying this a lot lately, and on podcasts and at my live events, it's like, you know, we walk around all the time saying, I should have trusted my gut. I mean, have
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you've said that. I'm sure probably everybody listening to this podcast has said that at one point or another.
Mm-hmm.
And what you're really saying is, I should have trusted my intuition. I should have trusted my psychic ability, right?
Yeah, I
The
heard you
more you
say
believe, the
that.
more yeah, I mean,
That is
and
makes you think.
it makes you think, right? And look, I mean, again, if we look at it from, I guess, maybe a more scientific point of view, sure, you could have somebody standing in front of you that gives you the creeps or makes you feel a little bit off about, and that could be from, lizard brain or cues that you're getting, like nonverbal verbal cues. True, right? But
Mm-hmm.
let's talk about the experiences where you walk into a room and you just know something is off. You can feel it.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, something is very off here, right? So I don't know. It's like, I think, I don't know how I'm going to say this. Let's see. It's like, I think one of the problems is that sometimes mediums and psychics kind of make people feel like they're the only people who can experience these energies, right? And by doing that, you're really shutting people out.
Mm.
And I think what I would like to be known for as a psychic medium is somebody who helps other people wake up to their own potential and helps other people have their own experiences. Because at the end of the day, and I have a good friend named Jennifer Schaefer, who's also a psychic medium, and I share this story a lot too because to me, it's meaningful. Um, we were having this conversation about mediumship, and she said to me, she said, Cindy, our jobs as mediums are finished when nobody has to come see us anymore because everybody's having their own experiences.
Mm.
It's like, yeah, perfect. That's a good goal. And language is important when we talk about this, it really is. Language is important because if I say psychic, that turns some people off. If I say intuitive, some people are more open. If I say an angel told me, that some people are open to that. So, people across all cultures and religions are having these experiences, and they're using different language to express the experience.
Ooh, now you brought up angels. I wanted to touch on, we have that, we have demons, we have paranormal, we have dreams, we have elemental. There's so many things I want to touch on with you. I want to touch on what you just hit on with dreams, because I think you said 80% of the people can relate to that. I'll raise my hand. I can relate to that. My wife lost her grandmother last year. She had an extremely vivid dream, and she woke up just in tears, sobbing.
Yeah.
How can we break that down just a little more? Because I actually want to like kind of report back to her. People listening to this kind of like have an understanding of what the hell just happened. How does that happen? Do you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, can I tell you exactly how it happened? No,
From your
obviously no.
experience or
I
thoughts.
cannot. It's all a bit of a mystery. We're all trying to figure it out. But it's look, if you look at everything as energy, because everything is energy. It's just the spirit world is able to influence energies in this realm, right? So they're able to get in there, right? They're able to get in there. But beyond that, it's like the other thing I want to be known for is the medium who is okay with saying, I don't know how all of this works. I'm just showing up for the experience. Because the second I say I completely understand how it works, I'm actually closing myself off to new experiences. So I like really love to live in the mystery and just be like, yeah, no, this happens. Can I completely explain it? Absolutely not, but it happens, and none of us fully understand what happens when we die. When we get there, we'll figure it out. I mean, that is one of the biggest questions in life. What happens when we die? Right.
And I'll ask you that in a moment because I want your opinion.
Yeah.
One thing that comes to my mind, because I had a dream, was animals. Do you believe that animals are able to sense more spirit world?
Completely. Animals are super open. So this was years ago. I had this cat named Sassy. I love this cat so much, right? And I was like really deep in this meditation. Like I was in it, and I could feel this energy, like a spirit coming down. I mean, maybe it won't sound crazy to you, but it was coming down from the ceiling. I couldn't see it, but it's like I can feel. So I was like, oh my gosh, something is coming in. And I'm sitting there. I could feel it. I open my eyes. I look over. My cat, Sassy, is looking up at the ceiling and like moving her head, like making this weird noise. I'm like, oh my God, my cat sees it. Right.
Hmm.
And people will say that all the time. They're like, my dog, saw a spirit. My cat sees spirit. So animals, yeah, they're really, really open. They're super intuitive too.
I want to kind of combine the two because I remember probably, honestly, because you said you don't forget these dreams, and I didn't. My grandma passed away 10 years ago in her bed from pancreatic cancer. She had hospice. It was kind of a slow but sudden thing at the same time. And I remember shortly after, I had my dog Coda, who has since passed. I had a dream that I was at my grandmother's house, and my dog Coda, I followed her through my grandmother's house when she was never allowed in the house because she didn't allow dogs in her house. And she went to her bed where she passed away and just sat there and had me follow her and bring me to her bed and just kind of like to like see some energy that was like above the bed. And bam, I woke up.
Wow,
I woke
that's
up.
super interesting. Wait,
Yeah.
why are you saying you want to believe it's real? I mean, you've had some really profound experiences. What are you waiting
Yeah.
for? Like the burning bush? Are you waiting to get kicked by a ghost or
I'm
something?
waiting for Cindy to
Oh
teach
my
me. I want you to teach me, show me the way. But I do know you
God.
teach, so we'll get to that momentarily too, which I think is
Yeah.
incredible because it's really cool. Because I think like when you're like, how the hell do you practice this? How do you teach this? Aren't you just given this? This is just an ability. But no, you're actually kind of actually helping me understand how you do decipher and like the different languages, and I think decipher is probably the right word about like the
Yes.
audible and how you feel things, and right.
Hmm. Yeah, it's true because it really does feel like Pictionary, charades, and telephone. Even for me, sometimes it's like, what is going on? I've got all this information coming in. I have to sit with it and like figure out what's what and who's giving, So, yeah, I mean, I teach one of my favorite classes to teach is workshop for beginners because you have all these students coming in that are they're new, they're beginners, right? And when I explain to them how mediumship works, like just some of the fundamentals, they're like, "Oh my gosh, I had no idea that things could be this subtle. I had no idea that I could see a piece and feel a piece and hear a piece." And I think it's an important thing for people to understand because what happens when we watch movies, like Hollywood movies, like The Sixth Sense and The Conjuring, and I love those movies, right? But it makes it seem like mediums are seeing full body apparitions all the time. And that is not true.
Mm.
So it's and because of that, people are missing the experience. They're missing the signs. They're missing the subtleties.
Have you been to the Conjuring house?
I have not. No
Do
thanks.
you,
I'm
do you
good.
want to go?
No, I don't. No thanks.
Okay, so what if one of these shows so you're on the Dead Files now? What if the Dead Files is like, hey, we're going to this house? Is it Connecticut or Rhode Island? It's somewhere out there in the
It's
Northeast, right?
Connecticut. Wait, I think it's Connecticut. I think it's Connecticut. Maybe it is Rhode Island. I don't know. I know Andrea, so it's like I'm like, where is it? I think maybe it's Rhode Island. I don't know. Yeah.
What if they pull you to this house, you don't know where you're going, you're like you
I mean, if I had to go, I would go, but I
you'd go.
wouldn't like be like, oh, it's Saturday night. Let's go to the Conjuring house. I got nothing else to do. Like, thanks.
A lot of people do that, I guess, right?
No, I
Um,
know, I know, I know they do. But it's like, look, as a medium, it's like I've really had to learn, like, okay, like I'm okay to do my job when I'm called in, but I don't have to seek that out. Like I can, you see what I mean? It's
that is
like,
true.
yeah.
So I think I know the answer to this because you seem to be leaning into this and you teach people this. Are you happy that you have this gift? And did that take a while, perhaps, to get there? If you are happy, like, what's your thought about having this ability? And did you ever just like not want it?
No, I mean, it's like look, I do not look at this ability as a curse at all. I'm so grateful that I'm able to share this with other people to like I tell my students this, and I tell even people at my that come to my events this, like mediumship, it's about working for people in this dimension and for people on the other side, but it's been also been this amazing personal journey. It's helped me grow a lot as a person to really like dive deep and look at these pieces of myself that need to be looked at. And what I've also learned in this journey is that the more I work through my own stuff, the better my mediumship becomes.
Hmm.
And because when I'm communicating with spirits, I'm communicating with people, right? And people are complicated. People have issues. People have trauma. People have like, you know, stuff. And I can be just as triggered by a spirit as I can by somebody in the living. And until I work through, right? Until I work through those triggers, I'm not able to be as useful to the spirit world or to the people in the living, right?
Hmm.
And so it's like I don't know. I've just really started to dive into that aspect of my mediumship and to really look at all of those angles and because it is a journey, right? And
Right.
it's important for mediums to, and this is my opinion, it's important for anybody working professionally as a medium to really sit and work through their own stuff.
So, in your experience, over the last decade, 2 decades, or whatever, since you've kind of dove into this a little more, do you feel that the world in general is becoming more accepting of this, or do you feel perhaps it's going the opposite direction?
Um, Look, I think people are more open to it now than they were 20 years ago. It seems like, there's a lot more stuff, like a lot more like stuff happening in television with mediumship and paranormal stuff. Um, but I don't know. Look, I mean, again, I think it's about language. I think that there are mediums in all walks of life and all cultures of religion talking about mediumship, but using language that can be understood by the people listening, that can be accepted that way, right? So
Mm.
I don't know if that makes sense. It's like I'm trying to like be, because look, like when we're talking about people that are very religious and they're praying and they're asking for the intercession of angels and they feel like they've been visited by an angel and an angel told them this or that. When you're communicating with an angel in that moment, you're acting as a medium, because the definition of a medium is somebody who's an intermediary between this dimension and the next. If you're getting downloads from angels, from saints, you're acting as a medium, right? You might be using it differently. You might not be giving somebody a reading. You might not be going on a paranormal investigation, but you're communicating with something in a different realm and you're the intermediary, right? So it's like, think about it that way, right? And so I think what happens is people think, oh, medium, psychic. They think of the the palm reading in the window, come in for a 1-800 psychic reading, right? And
Miss
it's like
Cleo.
and so it's unfortunate that's maybe how some people look at what's happening. But I think, again, it's also important to remind everybody that they have the ability to feel the energies around them, right? And that it doesn't have to be this thing where I don't know, mediums and psychics that are working professionally are putting themselves on these pedestals, acting as if they're the only ones with the ability, because that is absolutely untrue.
I like you. You seem very credible, which I very much appreciate. Very vulnerable as well. So thank you for that.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
you brought up angels and saints. Have you ever communicated with an angel or a saint?
Saints, not sure. Angels, definitely felt the angels. Definitely felt angels.
Well, okay, so can
And
you explain what definitely feel the? What does that mean?
well, it's through automatic writing. So, okay, so like this is probably, I'm going back to like 2008. I was doing even more automatic writing. It was actually what I was doing the most. And so I would sit and I would like automatic write for like sometimes an hour a day, sometimes 2 hours a day. And when I was doing automatic writing, I was getting information from different beings. Like, so I started to understand the difference between the angelic realm, between the human realm, between like ascended masters, right? Well, and I guess saints could be in that category too. And I did have encounters with what I believe to be angels or the angelic realm. And what was so interesting for me is, I guess I had always like had this idea that angels were like, oh, they're so sweet and loving, and yes, they can be, but they also mean business. Like, they don't mess around. And so when I would get this information from angels, and it was just different than what I expected, right? Um, and I don't believe that angels were ever human, could that be a product of growing up in a Catholic family? Yes, right.
Mm,
And going a little bit on in a maybe a side note, I do believe that how we experience the spirit world is influenced by how we've been socialized.
mm.
So I really, really do believe that, right? Because I've spent time in different countries and talking to mediums from different cultures and religions, and I could be describing something and they can be describing the same thing, and we're calling it something totally different. And that's just because that's how we were raised.
I was wondering that honestly. Let's talk about your travels and
Mm-hmm.
your different experiences. And I listened to a podcast earlier today about how you were, I believe it was Indonesia, and you were seeing what's described as a jinn. I
Oh
think
yeah,
you said
yeah,
it
yeah.
was.
Yeah, yeah,
So we can
yeah.
like talk about that, how different cultures perceive things, and are they more open to the paranormal than we are, or what the difference is between different cultures and us. Would love to hear your experience with that.
Oh man, this is like, where do I start? Okay, so
All
yes,
right.
I actually just got back from Indonesia. I was there for a month.
That's
Um,
amazing.
and I've spent a lot of time in Indonesia. I love it there, and the culture is just, I love the culture. The history is so rich. There are so many amazing places to visit. It's a mystical place, right? And yes, so the people that I've worked with in Indonesia, not all of them, but a lot of them, you know, are believe in these creatures called jinn, and jinn are creatures made of smokeless fire, right? So the concept of jinn comes from the well, okay, it doesn't just come from the religion of Islam. It actually predates Islam. So if you look back in indigenous cultures, they'll talk about jinn as well. But Indonesia is majority Muslim country, and so all of the paranormal investigators that I have worked with there, or the mediums, talk about jinn. So when they're communicating with these creatures or beings in other dimensions, they believe that they're jinn. So here's what's interesting. Okay, so I could be sitting with somebody and saying something like this: I see your father on the other side. He died of lung cancer. I could be getting all this information, and the person could be like, yeah, well, my father did die of lung cancer, right? The Indonesian medium could see the same thing, but what they would say is, well, this isn't the human soul of your father. This is the jinn, because there's one jinn that comes in with each human soul that is with them throughout the entirety of their lives, that knows that's like the blueprint of the human. Do you see what I
Mm,
mean?
mm.
So they would say I'm communicating with the blueprint of the human soul that's actually a jinn, and I'm saying, no, this is the human soul. But we can get the same exact information.
Wow. Wow. Cindy,
It's
do you have like
interesting.
5 more hours? Because I want to dive into this even more. Um, yeah, that's so from your experience, like different cultures, are they perhaps more open to this than we are? Do you experience anything more ancient at the other side of the world? Because I feel like there's just way more history, but I know there's a lot of Native
Well,
American history here.
I mean, look, it's like the energy in Southeast Asia for me is just like, it is so, for me it's just magical. It's just I can't really describe it. Maybe I had a past life there, if you believe in that thing, because it's like if you believe in past lives, because every time I go there, it's just like I feel like I'm home and I'm tapping into these ancient energies, and it's just,
Mm,
for me, really really interesting. But do I think that other cultures are more open to the having these experiences than we are in the West? Yes, I do.
mm,
I do, especially in the East, in certain places in the East. It's like part of their culture. It's part of life. It's not like necessarily this big deal. It's like, oh yeah, I saw a spirit, big deal. Oh, there's a jinn over there. Yeah, of course there is.
no kidding.
And I mean, it's not everywhere, but it's, yeah. I mean, look, a little bit more closed down here. Mm.
I That's why I asked that. I figured it's nice to have confirmation. It's almost kind of too bad. Like these conversations are fascinating. I would love to learn more about that. Have you ever been to a funeral process or a burial that on like the other side of the world that you like appreciated? Or
Yes,
yeah?
I just did. Okay, so I just got back from Indonesia, right? And I literally just went to a funeral. Okay, and so I was on the island of Sulawesi in Toraja. Now, Toraja is fascinating. The Toraja people have really interesting death rituals. Okay, so um, Toraja is now about 90% Christian. So when you go to a funeral in Toraja, you're really going to a Christian funeral, but the Toraja people are incorporating the rituals of their ancestors into the funeral so they can preserve the culture. Okay, so let me just preface the conversation by saying that. But what's so interesting about um, the Toraja people is okay, when somebody dies, okay, and I'm giving you information based on how the ancestors used to think. So I can't say now that the Christian population fully believes what I'm about to say, because they've really just integrated these rituals into the Christianity to keep the rituals alive. But
Mm-hmm.
their ancestors would say this: when somebody dies, they're not actually dead until they've been buried, right? So they're either sleeping or they're sick. Now, the funerals in Taraja are very, very expensive. So, from what I learned on my trip, at minimum, a funeral is 50,000 US dollars. Minimum,
Wow.
right? And that's because there are animal sacrifices, all these, it's just so expensive, right? So a lot of families can't afford to bury their loved ones right away because they don't have $50,000, and that's minimum. That's like really low end. So what happens is until they're able to bury their loved ones, afford and pay for the funeral, they keep the bodies of their loved ones in their homes, and they
Mm,
treat their loved ones as if they're sleeping or sick. And they care for them. They bring them water. They bring them food. They put it next to the coffin. They have a way of preserving the bodies. So, and I saw that I visited two homes of people who had their loved ones in the homes, right? Because they still had not been buried. I also went to a funeral. The funeral I went to was of a mother and a son who were being buried together. The mother had died 2 years ago, the son 5 months ago. And I would say, I think the funeral probably cost 100,000 US dollars, 120,000 US dollars. And it lasts for several days. Um, the whole thing was just so interesting, and it was fascinating, and I'm so fortunate that I was able to go and be with a family. I have a lot of friends in Indonesia now, which is useful. But to really be able to sit with the family of the people who are being buried and have that experience and talk to them and ask them questions about culture and belief and how the spread of Christianity has like influenced these funerals and all that stuff. um but it really like made me think about my relationship to death and dead bodies, right? Like, because in the West we're like, oh, a dead body, that's horrible, like we're terrified,
mm-hmm.
and they're like, no, the body's in the home. They have like they have a ritual called manene that happens once a year where they exhume the bodies, dust them off, put new clothes on them, take pictures with them.
Oh, wow.
So it's like the boundaries between life and death are they're blurry, right? But it's like which way is better? Because if you grow up in a culture that understands very much so that death is a part of life, and there's this like constant honoring of the ancestors all the time, maybe that's easier. It doesn't mean they don't grieve the loss of their loved ones, but I feel like in the West we're really ill prepared to handle death.
Mm, very much. Okay. This is going down an avenue I was considering going down, but I got to ask you, walking into those two homes with the bodies there, did you pick up anything? Did you sense anything? Were they communicating to you? Was it like, what were they saying if they were communicating to you? Anything?
Yeah, honestly, in those, so two things were happening in those moments. Um, One, I was so focused on trying to be respectful of what was happening that I was not trying to tap in that way, because I was like, okay, I need to really just be, because I don't want to be that person going and be like, oh, your wife is telling me this, let me share with you, right? It was
Did they
like
know you had this ability?
they
They did.
knew, and they both, because I had done an interview with both of them prior, had shared with me that they were devout Christians. When I asked them about if they believed that the spirit of their loved ones was present in the home, they're like, they know they went straight to heaven. I'm like, okay, this would be a moment where I need to really be respectful of somebody else's belief systems and just not go there and show up more as somebody who's asking questions about culture, right? Because I would have felt like I was crossing a boundary to then say to them in those moments, hey, I feel the spirit of your wife and she or your sister, and she's telling
Mm,
me this.
mm-hmm,
Because that's not their belief system, right?
mm-hmm,
So it's also, as a medium, about understanding when to be respectful of other people's belief systems and not it's not my job to impose my belief system on anybody else.
mm-hmm.
And I was so fortunate that they even allowed me into their homes, and they allowed me to see the ritual and the culture, and because that's really vulnerable for them too. Yeah.
I can only imagine the amount of people grieving that you either work with or want to talk to you. Um, just what are your thoughts on that? And I told you I was a long time ago, I'm going to ask you, like, what happens when we die? Like, from your beliefs and from your experiences and the communication you've had, what does happen? Like you said, that's what we all want to know. Is like, is it the end of life? Is it another chapter? Like, I
Yeah.
don't know. I could, yeah, take it away.
Well, yeah, okay. So again, boy, I always say this, like I will share with you what my experience has been thus far. But ask me in 10 years, I might have a totally different answer for you. Okay. And I'm sure I'll get to the other side and be like, got that wrong. So that's my disclaimer. but
Fair enough.
no, really, really. But in my experience, like let me share one story with you. I'm gonna share stories to help like explain my experience as a medium and kind of my thoughts on the afterlife, right? So um I do believe that there's a life review. I'll say that. But let me share this story with you. So this was probably, let's see, 2000, this was like 2017 or 2018 in California. I was doing a live event. Okay. And I felt the presence of this man. I was describing him. I like knew that he had gotten in trouble with the law. He was wild. He'd been arrested. He had a drug problem. And I knew he was, I think you said he was in his 30s, right? And so I felt pulled to this woman in the audience or around this table. And I said, I'm hearing the name Garrett, right? So this woman in the audience raises her hand and she said, wow, this is really weird. She said, Cindy, she said, I had lunch with my friend Garrett today before your show. Okay. So, like in the afternoon, my show was in the evening. She's like, I had lunch with Garrett. And she said, at lunch, Garrett was telling me about his best friend, who is who you're describing, this man who's in trouble with the law, all these
Hmm.
things. She said, but the thing is, his best friend is being taken off of life support tomorrow at 1 p.m. He's not dead yet. Okay.
Yeah, that's a lot.
So that's interesting, right?
Hmm.
So he wasn't actually dead yet, and his heart was still beating, right? But his soul was able to get to me doing this live event to give me the name of his best friend, to go to this lady in the audience who had lunch with his best friend before my show. I mean, like, what are the chances to actually say I'm sorry to his best friend and to say goodbye before they pulled the plug at 1 p.m. the next day, right? So what does it mean to be dead, right? What does it mean to
Hmm.
be dead? Because you would say, well, technically this person isn't dead, but still somewhere else, still able to move, still, in my experience, in the afterlife, right? Now, if then, okay, another experience, you know, communicating with spirits at my live events. A lot of times I'll bring through people who have taken their own lives, people who have died from drug overdoses, right? Never have I experienced any of these souls. Actually, one time, let me, it's not never. Most of the time, I'll tell you about the one time, but most of the time, these people are coming through to acknowledge how their passing, affected other people, to explain why they made the decisions that they made to make amends, right? So there is a piece of, let's say, unfinished business. And when I say unfinished business, that doesn't necessarily mean somebody's being tortured or tormented. It's just
Hmm.
like this piece of like, let's finish this piece because I need my family to know why this happened. And a lot of the times it feels like it's for the spirits, the people on the other side, but it's also for the people in the living,
Hmm.
because people in the living want answers, right?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, we all do for sure.
it's really challenging, right? It's so challenging. And but the only time um that I've experienced somebody who had committed suicide being in a not so good place where they had a lot of work to do. Um, was there was a man who had taken his own life, and he did it in such a way, like it was he did it to hurt his wife who had left him. He had actually filmed himself doing it so people could see it, like the whole, and not to, I don't
Ooh,
really want to go into this too much, but you see where I'm going. Like the
yeah,
intention behind it was to inflict as much pain as possible on his family, and that was a different scenario, right? That was a
yeah.
different scenario. um but I do believe that like I do believe that we see our actions. I see how we've influenced other people. But I feel like this life review, because a lot of people talk about the life review, but I feel like it happens in a way where we're at least supported. We're able to look at these things in a way that where it's bearable, you know,
Mm.
for the most part. Look, I haven't encountered every spirit who's been to the other side, but this is just based on what I've encountered. And just to add one more thing,
Yeah.
I don't believe time and space are linear on the other side. I think that the soul can be in many different places simultaneously. And I think so. If we talk about dead files and paranormal investigations, it doesn't make sense to me that the entirety of a soul would be trapped in a house for eternity. That just like
Yeah.
energetically is not logical. And why? So, what I'm starting to really, sorry, my dogs,
Oh,
the
it's all
dogs,
good.
sorry, the, the dogs. Oh, so what I'm starting to, sorry.
We're a
So,
dog
what I'm
house. Don't
starting,
worry about
okay, I don't know what they're
it.
barking at. Okay. What I'm starting to really like kind of, I guess, lean into or think about more is, what is it that I'm encountering? Who am I encountering? And if I believe that the soul can be in many different places simultaneously, and if I believe that there's unfinished business and traumatized aspects of the soul, I I, I believe that maybe I'm encountering, this fragmented aspect of the soul that needs healing, right? Like
Mm.
the part that had got traumatized, the part that fragmented off, that stayed in that location, that was left behind. And that's not to say that there isn't another piece of that soul that's somewhere else communicating with a different medium, right?
Wow.
Because it just energetically doesn't make sense to me, um, that the entirety of the soul would be just bound to this house. It just doesn't make sense energetically. And yeah, it's like, I mean, I could talk about this for like 2 hours or more
I'm
of just trying to
fascinated.
unpack it, because it's just, it's like there's so much that we don't understand, and it's not as simple as saying, oh, I see a spirit there and this person is stuck here. It's like, this person is stuck here for eternity, and I as the medium have to save their soul. It's like not like that. It's
Mm.
like not that simple. There's a lot more to it than that. And I think, I don't know. It's just I'm just really starting to feel into those spaces, and trying to understand what it is that we're actually doing as mediums. Because I would hope that, um, you know, um, that the innocent child version of the aspect of the soul is somewhere beautiful,
Mm.
right? Because we come in that way. We're not, people make mistakes, and we have things that we have to look at, but I don't like the concept necessarily of everything good, everything evil, good and evil. Like there's more to, everybody has light and everybody has shadow. And I
Mm.
think the issue is we push the shadow away a lot. We don't want to look at it, even though we all have it. And it's time to kind of bring things a little bit more full circle and have more compassion.
I think we need to sit by a campfire and just have a cocktail or a beer or something like that and just go down this road for a while. Um, I think a term you've used a few times, correct me if I'm wrong, is spirit world. If you could dive into real quick, like what that is. And I think a
Yeah.
question that a lot of us have, if not every one of us, will we see our loved ones again? And how, to me, it's like, how does that happen? A spirit world, all I can visually think is like another planet Earth, right? It's like,
Yeah.
how am I going to find someone that died 40 years before me if I'm
Yeah.
searching for that? Or do you have any
Yeah.
clue about that?
Yeah, well, it's like this. Look, time and space, I don't believe are linear, right? And it's very hard to explain that concept without giving things time and space. It's like hard to comprehend, right? So what I
Yeah.
would say is when your soul, transitions to the different frequency, you will know the frequency of your loved ones and your ancestors. You'll understand everything is, to me, like a vibration, an energy, a frequency. You'll know their frequency. It doesn't mean necessarily that you're going to go there and see, sorry, a full body apparition of your loved one. You might. I don't know. I haven't died yet. Knock on wood. But it's like, look, we have to receive the information in a way in which we can understand it, right? So even when I'm working as a medium and I'm saying I'm seeing this person that looks like this over here, right? I have to receive it that way, because if I were seeing many aspects of the soul fragments flying around, I don't really can't comprehend that. And people don't really understand what the hell I'm talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're using language to that's relatable, right? We have to receive it in a way that's relatable and also use language that makes sense, you know. But there's this guy named Matthias Stefano, who's has a show on Gaia. My husband's like a huge fan, and he turned me on to him, and he does a whole talk about dimensions, right? Because when we talk about dimensions, it's like if there's time and space aren't linear, then how is there a dimension? Because that's space, right? And so he said something in a podcast once that I thought was really fascinating. He said, we're not moving to a dimension, we're shifting our awareness to a different frequency.
Hmm.
It's like you're shifting the awareness. Because I'm starting to really believe that everything is right here. Everything is happening all at the same time, past, present, and future. It's
Hmm.
all right here. You're shifting your awareness to a different vibration frequency. Yeah.
Super interesting. For whatever reason, my mind is going to like Interstellar. If you've ever watched Interstellar.
Right. No, but that's what I mean. It's like, right. So it's to me, it's more like that, right? It's yeah. Um, but I also believe that, like, there's like a Sufi, like Sufism I find to be really interesting. I have a friend who talks about the Sufi, you know, uh, you know, explanation of reincarnation, and how, when a soul comes in, it passes through all of the different realms. So there's like angels, there's ascended masters, there's the Akashic, there's all of it, right? And the soul has all of the aspects and elements of all and information from all of these realms. So every soul that's in this dimension right now has all of the information inside of it. It's about remembering those aspects. So you will know the frequency of the people who have gone before you, and
Hmm.
because you have it inside of you, where there's no separation, right?
This is
But it's
fascinating.
like how do you, right? I can say all these things, right? But it's like I'm still like sitting with it, like trying to comprehend it myself. It's right, it's difficult.
I'm going to ask a selfish question. I remember asking
Hmm.
Michelle this a few years back. Animals, pets, will we see them again as well? Because my dog was
Totally.
my best friend.
Totally. I love bringing through animals. Like, so it's sometimes at my live events, it'll be like human spirit, then there's an animal, human animal. It's so fun.
I'm not asking for a reading, but if you sense an animal around
No,
me, I'm going to ask you to tell me, please.
it's
That would
so
be
fun.
amazing.
It's so fun. I was doing an event. It was earlier this year, and I was like, oh my God, this is gonna sound so crazy. This is what I said to the audience. Like, this dog is here. And I was like, I'm hearing the name Pickles. Like, I was like, I can't say that out loud. And this woman's like, oh my God, my dog Pickles. So it's like they come through, they're with us.
That'd make me the happiest person on planet Earth.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
amazing. I know I only have so much time left with you. One thing I also want to touch on, besides just the automatic writing, is you also do drawings, and
Mhm.
they're legit. They're really super cool drawings. Is it charcoal? Is that what you use? What do you use? What's your
Yeah,
medium?
yeah. I usually use like charcoal, soft pastel. I've been trying to mix it up a bit using like tip paint and acrylic, and but yeah, I do spirit guide drawings, and it's really an extension of my automatic writing. So what was interesting is I'm not a trained artist. I didn't really even
Oh, I
know
think
I
they're
could
cool. I
draw.
think they're great. Yeah.
Thank you. And so I was doing automatic writing a lot, 2008, 2007, and like I was really in it, like so in automatic writing. And then I had this intuition, like just try this, like grab some art supplies and just put your hands to the paper and let your hands move. And so I was like, okay, and I did it, and faces started showing up, and I was
No
like, oh my
kidding.
God, I finally lost my mind. Like this is this is the time where I've lost my mind. And I just like I don't know, I just embraced it, and and then for a while I just stopped drawing and stopped doing spirit art. I was busy like really trying to work like using the clairs. Remember, I was talking about the clairs more, clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience.
Mhm.
And then when I was on Holzer Files and started doing TV, I was like, oh, I should like maybe I should try to see what I could do with my spirit art, like bring it back, you know? And so I've been doing a lot more of it lately, and it's been really fun.
Yeah, that's amazing. Something else that just came to my mind is I'm genuinely curious. Do you have thoughts on an ayahuasca or a psychedelic experience and
Oh, that's
connecting with it?
hilarious.
Why is that
That's
hilarious? Tell me
no, because
more.
I'm a huge advocate for all that stuff. Look, it's like um yes and yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I just think that, you know, obviously people need to be responsible, mindful of where they're going to have these experiences and all those things, but deeply therapeutic. I've seen people where I've had conversations with people who have you know, done various plant medicines and said, I
Mhm.
saw my ancestors, I saw my dad, I had this experience. Like, and it's real, you know, like they really, really did. And, you know, yeah, there's something there. There's something there.
Would you kind of say almost you have the ability to microdose on a psychedelic or something like that? Like you can kind of get some of that just naturally? I don't know if that's a
Oh,
good
no, I
comparison.
mean, well, no, it's not that. It's not that. No, it's like, look, like how do I explain this? It's like, look, like those experiences are their own experiences. Plants have their own spirit. Like if you look at like I believe everything has a spirit. So when
Mhm.
people are working with these different plants, they're working with the spirits of those plants, which and the spirits of those plants can help people have experiences with the other side, with their loved ones, with opening up to um, different, I don't know, energies, universes, whatever, right? All of
Mhm.
those things, right? And then when I'm working doing, you know, the mediumship that I'm doing, I don't consider it the same thing. I don't put it in the same category, right?
Got it. Was just curious. But Cindy, I know you got to get running here shortly. I do want to give people the opportunity to find you, to go to your shows, to even learn from you, which I think is just absolutely fascinating. Now I'm going to look into this. So please, like, show people where about your shows coming up, about where they can find you online, follow you on social. Please
Yeah,
let
yeah.
us
So
know.
everything, cindykaza.com is my website. All my live events and classes are listed there. My social media, you can find me on Instagram, X, Facebook, all Cindy Kaza. Yeah, I just post everything there. So yeah, check it out.
That's amazing. Everything will be linked in the show notes. Scroll down, follow you. Clearly, you are an amazing follow. Just super fascinating. Like I said, if you're ever down in the North Carolina area, we'll grab a drink and just
Yeah,
talk for 10 hours.
yeah,
I will pick
totally,
your
totally.
brain all night because I think it's absolutely fascinating. So I
Thank
remember
you for
you
having me.
you said be curious, right? You said you got to be curious. Be curious is super important. And I love being curious with you and talking about this subject. So once again, thank you so much for your time. Everyone go follow you and hopefully we'll talk again soon.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure. Thank you so
Cindy,
much.
you're the best. Thank
Okay,
you.
bye. Thank
Bye.
you.